So yes, please support that if you can. Now, our next guest is a solicitor who believes that couples who are in adversarial legal disputes can save at least 60% of the costs and almost all of the stress by turning to mediation and collaborative resolution.
Author of Appropriate Dispute Resolution in Ireland, a handbook for family lawyers and their clients, Josepha Madigan joins us now. Well, Josepha, thanks very much for coming along to the show. Just to show how strongly you feel about all of this, you've written that book because you believe that this can all be done outside of the courts, well, in 90% of cases in any way.
Absolutely, Claire. And Carol Coulter would have done a study back in 2007, and in her research it showed that 90% of cases in family law could be resolved outside of court. Or sorry, that they do resolve themselves outside of court, basically, once they have gone through the process. And I suppose my view on it is, why can't there be an earlier resolution of these disputes? Why do we have to bring people to the door of the court? And the Minister for Justice, who launched my book on Tuesday night, basically said the same thing, in that a lot of these clients have their case resolved on the door of the court. Why do we have to bring them all the way through this very tough adversarial process when there is another way to do it?
Like the breakup of a relationship, the breakup of a marriage is tough enough.
Yes.
And then, of course, you know that assets have to be split, children have to be taken care of primarily. So it's daunting enough without the threat of court.
Yes.
So how early can mediation be introduced?
It can be introduced at any stage. At the end of the day, I suppose it's up to the clients themselves whether or not they want to avail of that dispute resolution mechanism. The same as collaborative law. If both parties, as in the husband and wife, or if it's any couple separating, they don't necessarily have to be married, could be cohabitants or civil partners, or even any sort of relationship that they need help with, and they don't want to have to go through this awful adversarial process, which, by the way, you know, it goes without saying that litigation is always going to be necessary. However, I don't think it's always appropriate. So if somebody is contemplating separation or divorce, they can go to their solicitor and they can say, look, I really don't want to go to court, and I honestly believe that my partner doesn't either. Can we see if we can resolve this outside of court? And perhaps with the view to having that document made into a legally binding agreement, because that can be done if both parties consent. So the Mediators Institute of Ireland is a good place to go, www.mii.ie, and they can look up for a mediator on that, or they can go to a solicitor who's a mediator, as well as a collaborative practitioner. So there's various different options open to clients, and I suppose, as Claire said, I felt so passionately about it that I wrote this book, because there was so little information in relation to these processes. And I think as lawyers we have a duty to do the best for our clients. You know, it's not necessarily about ourselves.
Do you think people might have fears when it comes to mediation, of the idea of a big boardroom facing off against your other half, and in a bid to sort things out, that it actually can be quite a difficult situation? Is that the reality?
It is. I suppose once you get people to the table, you're not saying that you're nearly halfway there, but you know, you certainly got them some of the way forward. As I said, it's not going to be for everybody. And sometimes where there's emergency care orders, or there's going to be safety issues in relation to children, or domestic abuse, or even possibly drug addiction and alcohol dependency, maybe, you know, mediation and collaborative law isn't going to be suitable. I believe that the majority of people do want to sort out their issues, and the mediator is trained to manage that process and trained to manage the high conflict situation that may come into the room. And
of course, with the court setting, there's all the emotional upheaval and the stress that goes with that, and bringing any sort of family case into play in the courts is very stressful for all concerned. But there's also financial impact, isn't there? You can save a lot of money by avoiding the courts.
Save a lot of money. And it sounds like I'm sort of bidding against myself, being a lawyer, and telling people to go to mediation and collaborative. But, you know, obviously I do those jobs, if you like, as well. But you know, there is a huge cost saving, you know, financially. And, you know, my estimation, as I've said, is about 60%. And the reason for that is, you know, a mediation would normally take between 3 and 6 sessions. Okay. And you can then do an agreement out of that. The collaborative process probably in around the same. And you're talking of thousands.
How much does mediation cost? How much would it cost per
session? It does depend on the mediator,
Yeah.
so I wouldn't like to give a figure in relation to that, but I can say that you're talking of a saving up maybe 10, 15,000 by not going to
Because
court.
in court, you're looking at fees that could go from 5,000 to wherever.
Absolutely. And they can escalate.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it sort of compounds the hostility between couples, and then, you know, you're obviously employing litigators, you know, and we can all be litigators, but we have to be.
Yeah.
But, you know, you're just sort of making it worse.
One thing you understand with the courts as well is the fact that it is legally binding, and that's what you think, no matter how difficult it is, you're going to the courts and what is said is set in stone.
Yes.
Is this always the case with mediation?
Well, you see, this is
Josepha?
something, and another reason why I wrote the book, Claire, is because there's a lot of, you know, as I said, misperceptions about what it means, and people sort of think of incense and candles and sandals and this sort of thing. It's not,
approach.
you know, it's not counselling. It's not therapy. It's a very structured process, you know.
The
and if
person
you're
there is not trying to
particularly-
put the two people back together
Exactly,
again.
yeah, you know, and if you're a lawyer mediator, you know, you're sort of trained in that way. You deal with, you know, the whole gamut from, you know, pensions if you're going to do a separation deed, the family home, maintenance, access, you know. So I suppose I wanted to dispel those myths really by writing this book. The collaborative process is slightly different in that you have your legal advisor present with you. So if somebody, for example, was feeling slightly vulnerable or felt that they weren't going to be capable of maybe, or didn't want to even do the mediation process without their solicitor present, then the collaborative process is the route for them. So I would just say to clients to go to a family law solicitor, ask them are they collaboratively trained, or go to one that is and see if you can get your husband or your wife or your partner to do the same.
You've given us an explanation of what collaborative dispute resolution is.
Yes.
The solicitors also sign documents saying that this will not go to court. that
Yes.
This is where it's going to be.
Yes, they sign a participation agreement, Martin, that basically they undertake to stay out of court, yeah. Now, there is one aspect to collaborative law, and that is that the solicitors who you engage in the process can't represent you in future contested court proceedings. And that's an important point to remember. But with that, you get two collaborative lawyers who are invested in the process because it's in their interest to make it work too.
Okay.
You know?
Okay. I'm just wondering, because you pointed out just a few minutes ago that you represent couples who are living together, cohabitees, married couples, same-sex couples who are breaking up. It has become incredibly complex. So if some of these cases do go right,
Grandparents, access,
Yes.
and IVF, and
all these things too. So if these cases do eventually arrive in court, how are they being dealt with?
The judges do the best they can under the circumstances with the legislation that exists and with set precedents. But, you know, why would you choose a court-imposed outcome when you can control the outcome yourselves at the end of the day? That would be, you know, and with Carol Coulter's study, you know, and 90% of cases settling outside of court, which is a proven statistic, then why can't they be done earlier on?
And in the times we're living in now, another challenge that's facing family law cases is the whole issue of property and of negative equity. What sort of issues has that thrown up?
Very difficult. I mean, even a few years ago, you know, there was a lot of money sort of around, and there was equity and people buying each other out. Now the difficulty is that the lending institution, even if one person wants to transfer the family home, say, into the other partner's name, the lending institution won't consent to that. So the judges are faced with making very difficult decisions when there's very little left in the pot, and all the more reason to avail of these dispute resolution mechanisms.
Okay, so mediation, you can kind of work your way through it in a number of
You
sessions.
can brainstorm different options that wouldn't be available to you in a court. That's not the judge's fault. You know, it's simply that they're not able to do it.
Well, before they go knocking on your door, they can, of course, buy the book, which is out now, Appropriate Dispute Resolution.
Yes.
And it's been a long time coming, and thank you very much for taking the time to write it.
Thank you very much, Martin. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you, Josepha.
Now, after the break, we'll be taking a look at some of the funniest clips on the internet, so we'll see you for that in a few minutes.